You recognize this space? Probably not, but I can guarantee you know somewhere just like it. A space that on its own is unremarkable, but combined with the right amount of intention, care, and creativity, really takes on a vibe of its own. This could be a bedroom or a restaurant or any number of spaces that people really pour themselves into. But today we're going to talk about retail spaces. And in particular, retail spaces that break the mold of what a traditional retail space usually looks like. And it's easy to look at pieces of design and think, this is different from what I'm used to. But what we really want to do here is figure out why and how they make that happen. For those who don't know, this is Revibalize, a series where we pick a piece of design that has a unique and distinct vibe to it, try to break down that vibe and figure out what makes it tick. And then at the end of the video, I take a crack at trying to recreate that vibe myself with the various tools at my disposal. Of course, this video is going to be a little bit different from the first two we did. The first two videos, we largely focused on video games. And in particular, we looked at Mass Effect and The Sims, the first Sims game. But I think the third video is a good opportunity for us to explore a new medium entirely. Okay, so where were we? This is a store, just a regular old store. I know you've been to a store before. So this is a store. It doesn't really matter what type of store it is. It could be a department store, it could be a boutique, it could be any number of big brand stores. They could sell clothes or electronics or even food, whatever. But the key feature of a place like this is that the main purpose, the main reason they exist is to make money. And the design philosophy of a place like this is largely focused around facilitating sales. Retail merchandising is an entire school of thought and a profession that uses psychology, sociology, and design to encourage customers to buy as much stuff from a retail space as possible. And you've seen it before. They might arrange the store in such a way that you're encouraged to walk all throughout instead of just being corralled into like a specific department or area. Or if they have a sales section, it's usually at the very back of the store, so you have to walk past all the beautiful new stuff in order to see the sales stuff that you actually want. Or they even probably have small accessories near the front till where you're more likely to make an impulse purchase. The vast majority of retail locations we encounter in our daily lives are like this. They exist almost solely to sell product, and if they don't do that, they'll close down. And don't get me wrong, a lot of these stores do look very good, and they look good because they have super talented teams of designers and merchandising professionals whose job it is to make those places look good. Aritzia, for example, has a really talented interior design team that works in tandem with their really talented merchandising team. And their stores look beautiful, but make no mistake, if having beautiful stores didn't add to their bottom line in any way, they wouldn't do it. Like if Aritzia did some study and they found out that their customers love rummaging through piles of clothes in a dirty warehouse, they would change all their stores to look exactly like that tomorrow. Okay. That was supposed to be just a stupid joke, but apparently the joke's on me because Aritzia literally does do this. I swear I was trying to be hyperbolic, but no, not only I guess is this a real thing, but it's very popular and people travel all over to come visit these sales and they do love this. So yeah, back to the video, I guess. And to be honest, I think that's kind of why I've always found retail to be a little bit boring. Like for the most part, I hate malls. I think they're noisy and crowded and boring. To me, in a shopping mall, every store just kind of feels the same. But that's not the only type of store that exists. Have you ever gone into a store and there's a friggin' robot walking around and it looks so real, you're looking at this thing, you're like, what the hell, is this real life? Is this Ex Machina? Is this a presidential animatronic at Disneyland made by Imagineers? I just watched a 2-hour-long Defunctland video about this. And why does the animatronic at the Gentle Monster store look more realistic than the robot made by Tesla? Have you ever gone into a store and there's a fake river running throughout the store and there's real fish swimming around in the fake river and there's people standing on the side of the fake river with fishing rods catching the real fish within the fake river within the store? How did we get here? You ever see a store that's so crazy you just have to take a picture and post it on Instagram? I actually do really like stuff like this. You could say I'm a sucker for experiential retail. So of course, now we're talking about retail spaces that serve a little bit of a different function. I would argue retail spaces that exist not primarily to sell lots and lots of product, but more as a marketing tool. And I think the best example that I can think of is Gentle Monster. For those who don't know, Gentle Monster is a Korean eyewear brand, but there's so much more than that. They're also purveyors of some of the craziest shit you've ever seen. And I respect Gentle Monster a lot because they have a super dope creative team. I know some of them personally. And I kind of feel like they just let them do whatever. Like, okay, you want to open up a new space with a giant body in the middle of it for some reason, a giant disembodied face that looks super realistic, but there's like a machine coming out of the back of it. Gentle Monster's honestly done so many insane things over the years that you would need an entire, you would need a Defunctland video to make a whole proper dissection into the Gentle Monster lore. But for the sake of this video, let's take a purposeful look at a few things Gentle Monster's done just to get a sense of their vibe a little bit. And I think a good entry point for Gentle Monster would have to be the giant man in the Philippines. So in 2023, they opened their first Filipino flagship store in Manila. And this location featured this giant shirtless dude sitting on a slab of concrete in the middle of the building. It was supposed to be like a post-apocalyptic, dilapidated bungalow. And throughout the space, it also featured all these other cool installations like this disembodied blinking eye and a very cool glass facade. So you could see the whole bizarre scene from the outside. In March of 2024, Gentle Monster opened a new Tokyo flagship in the Oyama neighborhood. And it too has a ton of these hyper-realistic disembodied faces. And they're animatronics, so of course they move around and blink nonchalantly. And that would be crazy enough on its own, but it's also filled with all of these insane art installations and just genuine works of art. They're not just merchandising pieces or things for a point of sale display. These are genuine works of art that belong in a gallery. And I think that's really what my point is here with this whole thing, is that these spaces are galleries. And that's the hugest point of difference here with a traditional retail space. Is a traditional retail space is obviously very product centric. Everything that's going on within the merchandising design of the store is driving customers to interact with and look at the product, ultimately with the hopes that they buy it. But in these spaces, it's different because the product is not the centerpiece of the space. And I think nothing really illustrates this point better than Haus Dosan. Haus Dosan is basically an entire building in Seoul's Gangnam district that opened in 2021 and literally serves as an art gallery. It's 6 floors of constantly rotating exhibitions. And yes, it's always tangentially related to Gentle Monster or retail to some degree, but it's art. The first time I went to Haus Dosan, they had this crazy exhibit on the first floor by the 3D go Frederick Heyman. I'll put a link in the description below, but they still have a 3D model of it available online, so you can see just how crazy this exhibit was. Here's Jenny standing in front of it. And then the next time I went, they were showing off their Margiela collab with these crazy masked animatronic faces. And that's just the first floor. The rest of the space is just as beautiful and regularly features other brands and creators, just like a museum would. And this is just the tip of the Gentle Monster iceberg. It goes on forever. Each of their spaces are impressive and beautiful all in their own way. And here's what I'm getting at. I've been to many Gentle Monster flagships over the years. I've taken pictures of the animatronics, the installations, the spaces. I've shared videos of their marketing materials and animations on my own social media many times. And I own several pairs of Gentle Monster glasses that I've purchased at department stores and third-party retailers and stuff. But I've never actually bought anything from a Gentle Monster store. All the dozens of times I've been to these stores, I've never actually purchased anything at one of these stores. And I see this too. The stores are always packed, but they're packed full of people taking pictures and trying on the glasses and taking selfies with their friends. They're not really packed full of people, at least from what I could see, people buying the product. There's not lines at the tills of people waiting to check out. And one thing you'll notice about these spaces if you go is that they really encourage people to take pictures and videos, which is not the case in a lot of other high-end retailers. I remember my dad got yelled at in the Soho Babe store because he took a picture of the street from the inside looking out. Now, I don't know what the financials of this company look like, but if I were to hazard a guess, it's that pure retail profits are not the primary motivator of these grandiose flagship locations. And putting a realistic humanoid robot head in your retail stores might not encourage immediate sales, but it will encourage people to take lots of pictures and videos and post all over social media for people to see. At this point in the video, I like to pick out 5 elements that I notice that greatly contribute to the vibe of the space. Now, I've done some reflecting on my past videos, and I know that choosing a handful of elements from a complex piece of design might be overly reductive. But do keep in mind that these are just things that stand out to me. And I'm a dumb idiot, so it's really helpful for me to have a few things I can latch onto when I'm trying to recreate that vibe in Unreal Engine or Blender or whatever other design tools I'm using. So the first common element that I see in a lot of these spaces is a theme of transhumanism. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Max, Cut the bullshit, bro. What are you talking about? And I don't know if transhumanism is necessarily the right word, but I do think it sounds really cool and futuristic. What I mean by this is you'll often see human elements as like a grounding theme in most Gentle Monster stores. But these human elements are often augmented by technology in some obvious way. For example, disembodied human faces that look eerily realistic, but they're being controlled by like a giant machine. Or a super realistic giant eyeball that's like chromed out on the backside. Or the persistent use of animatronics and the implicit relationship between the creator and the creation, which I think is really interesting symbolism, because what are glasses if not the most primitive form of cybernetic enhancement that we have? It's literally technology we strap to our faces in order to augment our perception of the world. Now, of course, the next thing I notice about these spaces is the beautiful and thought-provoking use of art. Now, we've already talked about this at length, but these installations are obviously a key feature that can't be ignored. Now, when it comes to interior design, I wouldn't say there's any super obvious design theory or school of thought that they follow, but they are all, for the most part, quite futuristic. And sometimes that futurism can be optimistic, or it can be dystopian, or it can even just be pure fantasy. But for the most part, when you step into a Gentle Monster store, you do really get the sense like you're being transported to a totally different place in time. And of course, the product is typically featured as a complement to the space and the art within the space. In other words, it's secondary to the spectacle of the Gentle Monster flagship. And don't get me wrong, the glasses are always displayed beautifully, but it's hard to argue that they're the key feature in a space when you have like all of these crazy things happen. And finally, something that's true of every Gentle Monster store that I've ever visited is an extreme lack of mirrors. Tell me why, in a store where everybody's trying on sunglasses, there never seems to be a mirror nearby. And when you do find a mirror, everybody's like crowding around it and you gotta fight them for it. That's why I created a Gentle Monster store that's just mirrors. Mirrors for walls, mirrors for tables, robots made out of mirrors. Just kidding. Kind of. The actual fifth element I noticed in this analysis was a tremendous use of digital displays. As a digital designer myself, I'm always in awe of the crazy animations and 3D designs that the Gentle Monster team puts together. So whenever I go into a store, I'm always super happy to see those designs and animations displayed super prominently on these big displays. And it makes sense why they would do this. These animations are art, just in the same way that the animatronics and other installations are. And I think they definitely deserve to be recognized and appreciated by people in the same way. And that takes us to the part of the video where I try to recreate the vibes in my own way. And of course, I wanted to create a space that would do the Gentle Monster name justice. An experiential retail space in every sense of the word. So I present to you the mausoleum. The first thing you'll probably notice when you enter this space is the giant eyes staring you down. And there's also this cool mechanism passing in front of it. These are frames from Gentle Monster's latest season. So I tried my best to 3D model these little half frames of some of my favorite designs from this year. And if you'll notice, there's a little moving silhouette down here. And that's coming from this. Because you know I had to put an animatronic in here. This is just a basic Mixamo mesh that I retextured, but I think it really fit the vibe of what I was going for. And the idea was that this thing doesn't have eyes. This is its eye. It's like the overseer of the Gentle Monster store. And what it's doing as it's standing there swiping away is it's trying on the different glasses for its singular eye. Now, I obviously went with a bit more of a dystopian neo-brutalist approach, which I think suits a Gentle Monster vibe pretty nicely. Now, of course, off to the side here, we have several massive displays that are showing off some of those crazy visuals I was talking about earlier. And I think these screens create a really cool effect here. The ultra-high ceilings and dark concrete make this space feel quite imposing. And despite the massive skylights, there's not a ton of natural light in here. But the glare from the bright screens cuts through those shadows in quite an interesting way, and the movement from the animations almost becomes the ambient light of this space. And as for the furniture, I just made all of this in Blender. So these tables here, I wanted to create very intentional pieces that were specifically designed for the architecture of this room. The glasses displays were inspired by actual real-life displays in Gentle Monster stores. And I think they look really, really cool in this space, but I am sorry to say, these are not Gentle Monster glasses. I could have done it. I could have modeled 50 different pairs of glasses for the store, but I didn't want this video to take a year to make. If Gentle Monster wants to pay me to make an official version, I'll happily do that. But in the meantime, we've just got some generic placeholders. And you might also notice we have a couple mirrors. In fact, there are 2 mirrors in this entire space. Now, I built this in Unreal Engine, and I also included a downloadable version for you to explore for yourself if you'd like. But just a word of warning, I am not a game developer, so this is probably horribly optimized and it might not even run on your device at all. But I thought it might be cool for people to download if they want to check it out for themselves or whatever. So as I wrap this video up, I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who's here now and found their way here after my last video. That video really got way more attention than I was ever anticipating. You can even see in the video itself, I was kind of predicting that it would only get a few hundred views. And as of posting this, it's creeping up to 100,000, which is crazy beyond words. Like I can't even tell you how surprised I am by that. But of course, I know how the algorithm works. I know that that video obviously resonated quite well because there's a ton of nostalgia and love for the Sims series. And there's definitely no guarantee that my weird video on Gentle Monster will resonate in the same way. But I'm okay with that. I've seen a lot of channels over the past few years really start chasing the algorithm. And I think of course you gotta do what you gotta do, especially if that's like your primary source of income. But for me, I don't wanna do that. Like a logical choice for a lot of people in my position right now would probably be to release like a dozen more Sims videos. And we will make more video game videos for sure. I want to do that. I'm passionate about that. I want to encourage people to think in different ways. And I want people to feel my excitement about all sorts of different topics relating to design and art. Yeah. I don't know. I just want to say thanks again. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Of course, you don't have to, but thank you if you have. And a million thanks for all like the super nice and kind comments that people left on my last video. Like that to me is more encouraging than anything else. So yeah, thank you for the comments. Thank you for the messages. Thank you for everybody for, just being so kind and so nice. And I hope that with further videos and different video concepts and series concepts and shorts and all this, I hope I can foster like a little community here where people can get excited about design. And just for a couple minutes, we can forget about the troubles of the world and how crazy things are right now. We can just get excited about little things and be creative and think about things. And I don't know, I hope I can provide that space for people, because I think we need it nowadays. Like I said, there's a part 2 to this video coming soon, and I have lots of ideas for more Revibalize videos. But I also have ideas for other video series as well. Again, all with the main goal of encouraging people to step out of their comfort zones and get creative, either with themselves or with their friends. It's all about the journey, and we're here right now. So I think while we're here, we might as well have fun and experiment and get creative and make the most of our time. But thanks so much again, everybody. I appreciate you all so much. And until next time.